This is an overview of the Blackboard page for Gen Psych 2. There might be small changes on your actual Blackboard page because I do update things over time, but it should be pretty similar. This is the home page. You can always get here by clicking home page. Let me turn on preview mode so that it looks a little more similar to how yours will look. And this is a good place to see things like what's coming up due. Normally at the beginning of the semester that shouldn't be anything, but it'll show you what's coming up soon. And I try to put everything through the calendar so that this should be a pretty good place to check, to track what's coming up, including things like your class exams I have in the calendar, even though you don't do anything in Blackboard for them. It's just so that you can track them a little more easily. Here's the Start Here page. This is a good place to start out if you're not familiar with the course or you're not very familiar with Blackboard. I keep a copy of the syllabus and the schedule here. The syllabus is the full schedule, the full syllabus. The schedule is just the calendar part. So if you just want to check when something is due or print out the calendar checklist, the schedule might be a little easier. You don't have to scroll through all the stuff. This is where I'm going to put the overview video, right here where this PS 150 video is right now. Then I have this quick links, which links directly to the syllabus. If you click this, it takes you right to a copy of the syllabus. You can download it and open it right away. And that should always have the most updated copy of the syllabus. Like I said, the schedule, it's just another file. It's just a shortened version. Launchpad will take you out to the publisher's website. And right now, I'm not really using it officially for the course. I've put a lot of things into Blackboard that I could do through Launchpad instead. And because I'm not using it, I don't have a calendar set up. So you would go in just like you were a student. And just like you're a student without an instructor course. And it's going to warn you, but that's fine. And to get a free trial, you can just say, I need to pay later, put in an email address, and it'll take you through its setup. It's pretty easy and self-explanatory, but it doesn't seem to work well on an iPad or a tablet. You can usually use Launchpad with it, but you can't do the setup on a tablet. If you do have an access code that you want to use, you can do it right there, and that way you can keep using it all semester. This one will expire after 3 weeks. This has an ebook attached to it, so that's nice in terms of nobody has to fall behind while they're waiting for their book. And so I don't post any like PDFs of the early chapters, but I do expect you to be able to read because you can have access to the ebook for free. Make an appointment. This goes right to my scheduling website. Right now there's a lot of extra stuff on there from the end of last semester, but normally it'll come up with blocks of time. You just click one of the blocks, and again, it's pretty self-explanatory. Most students find it easy. They really like it. If you kind of struggle with it, just send me an email and we'll set up a time the old-fashioned way. So those are your quick links. Down here under course content, chapter assignments is where you're going to be going on a week-to-week basis. Again, you can access some of this stuff through the home page, but when you go in, it's in order of what you need to do, and you can click, you can watch the video, you can watch it right in here if you want. You can also click the link to go outside.
Time for school, and it's no surprise that many of us
Something
are
that's
determined to
really
study
interesting
smarter
is that
instead
you
of
can
longer.
actually
But which
change
study
the
tips and
speed.
tricks actually work
Sometimes these
scientifically? Help you
videos,
get those
the
good
speaker
grades?
is
First up, research
speaking
shows that
very,
studying
very
more effective in small,
slowly.
short chunks.
You can make
Instead
them
of
go
cramming in 10-hour study
faster,
sessions, it's
or
much more effective
if
to spread it out into
you
20, 30
want
sessions
to,
per
you can
learning
also
week.
make
This
them
keeps
go
your brain
slower. If you want to be able to hear it a little easier. And I tend to leave closed captions on. Sometimes it's really well done, sometimes they're just using an auto reader, but either way, I really like having closed captions. It helps me pay more attention. But it's nice, it's YouTube, you can customize it, you can make it full screen. You have a lot of flexibility with how you watch these videos. And the way I have it set up, there's basically a video for every lecture. And then once you watch the video, you click on the video response, and it's an assignment. It's worth 5 points. I do run them through SafeAssign, so you'll want to say, yep, I agree to do that. And then instead of writing it in Word and posting it, this is really a laid-back assignment. Just write it right in here, and it tells you exactly what you need to do. There's 2 things, and the first one is something interesting you recognize from the book. And the second one is something interesting that the video either helped you understand or that you really don't remember at all from the book. So something where they're similar, something where they're different. It's pretty easy, and really the goal is just to write your own response. Use full sentences, but you don't need to build a whole argument and use evidence. 1 to 2 sentences should be fine for each one. And this is just to give you a chance to think about the video, and it's a way for me to give you points for doing the reading in the video ahead of time. The other way I give you points for reading ahead of time is using reading checks, which are short quizzes. This one is particularly short. This one's just a practice one. You can get up to 1 bonus point if you answer all the questions from the prologue correctly. They're untimed. You can you can close and come back, but you only get to do them once because they're questions I handpicked. So there, I'll leave that. And so before you come to class, you watch a video, you read the chapter, you do your video response, and then you do a reading check. That's before we even talk about the chapter in class at all. So again, we see chapter 1. Obviously, you have the chapter that you need to read. Here's, these are in the wrong order. They'll be fixed when you see them. There's the video response, and then the reading check. I recommend watching the video and thinking about it before you do the reading check, because often the video is going to be similar to some of the questions. Not always, but often. Chapter 1 is a little different. And then the chapter quizzes are a little different. So it's still untimed, and you can close out and come back. This one you can take as many times as you want. And so this is a really good study tool. The downside is these are just random, huge question pools, like almost 200 questions. And so it's just from the publisher. It's not handpicked. So that means there's going to be some questions about things that I told you in class weren't very important for the test, that I don't think is important from the chapter. But they're all going to be from the book, and you can take them as many times as you want. And I often pull test questions from these pools or from very similar pools. So these questions are going to look a lot like your test, but the subject matter isn't going to be as close as it is for the reading checks. The reading checks are where you'll really get familiar with what I'm going to be asking about, and you'll often see a couple of those questions appear on the test. The other thing to know about the reading checks is that you don't see the answers until after the tests are due. And that's just to minimize cheating. And they're due before we start talking about them in class. And so that means that you'll have plenty of time to look at the answers before you get to the test. So chapter assignments, it goes week by week. But again, if you use the home page to manage things, it'll bring up what's due, coming up for you. So here, for example, you can see we've got all these dates. This is just kind of in a weird random order. That's not very helpful. Wow, I need to fix some of these dates. APA homework is the next thing we'll talk about. So this is just kind of sprinkled in. So I keep it separate from the chapter assignments because they don't really go with the chapter. Instead, they go with this other piece. So in this class, we have one track, which is the chapter in the textbook, and the other track is the APA paper. And the APA paper takes up about 1/3 of the time and 1/3 of the points for the class. And so each of these steps fits with, it's due the class period before that part of your paper is due. So for example, the title page will be due one day, let's say on a Monday, and then your title page would be due on Wednesday. So that means the APA homework. So again, it's not timed, you can leave and come back, but you only get one try. Yeah, so you can close it and come back to it, but once you submit it, you don't get to try again for another score, like you do with the chapter quizzes. And so you can see these have questions that fit with APA. So where does the page number goes? It goes in the upper right-hand corner in the header. What text goes in the header on the first page? And you can see, well, I know that the running head, only the first letter is capitalized, and then the shortened title is capitalized. And it says head, not header, even though you'll probably hear me say the wrong thing in class. And so it'll automatically save as you go, or you can hit save early. And now if I were to close out of this and come back, I would have my work saved. You can use absolutely any resource you want, and you should use any resource you want. But this is a way to help you take time to focus on the details of APA before you come in. And so this, I honestly don't remember if you get to see it right away or if you have to wait until after the due date. But we'll go over them in class too to see if you have any questions left about how to do it. So after you've gone through this and looked up all the answers, you should be pretty clear on how you're supposed to do your title page. So let's see, click OK to view results. Okay, so it will show it to you immediately. And it'll show you which ones you got right, which ones you got wrong. And there's some feedback for each one. And I took a lot of time to build this feedback. It's really meant to help you do as well as you can. Because the APA track, a lot of it you got to do on your own. We devote a lot of class time to it, but it's just not the same as doing it yourself. So that's your APA homework. Most of the things that you have for me, you can miss one with no penalty. Your lowest score gets dropped. For APA, there's actually 2 makeup opportunities, and these are just kind of random sort of everything quizzes. The review is also just a broad, lots of different questions. Whereas the others are pretty structured and pretty focused on what we're doing, what's due at that time. Key terms handouts have, for each chapter, they emphasize, oh, why are you doing that file? There's text there, but it doesn't always want to show. Let me see if that helps. No, that does not help. Oh well. So I will describe it to you, and it should, let me see how it looks if I act like I want to print it. Yeah, it shows it now. Maybe there's, I don't know what's wrong. But it should be 3 columns on the same page, and it says need to know. These are the things, the terms and the ideas that I think are essential. I can't in good conscience have you leave my class without knowing what those are. And so at least half the test, roughly, and up to 2/3 of the test will be about these terms. So if you only have, let's say, an hour or 2 to study, which is not enough to study really well for a test, you at least have a place to focus. Or, you know, this is where most of your time should be spent. So about half your study time might be devoted to these topics. Or if you just want to pass the test and you're not really that worried about getting a good grade in the class overall, you know, if a C is good enough for you, maybe you just spend your time studying this column, and that's okay. I don't take it personally if you're not worried about getting an A in the class. The next column are things that I think are important but are less essential, and so they're going to be almost 1/3 of the test. Up to about 1/3 of the test questions will cover these issues. The last one is the good to know column. These are things that are interesting and useful to know, and certainly you would talk about more in a full class on this topic, because each of these chapters is a full undergraduate class that we offer here. But the good to know column, there's going to be a few questions. So if you really want to ace this test, you need to pay attention to the good to know column. But if you're tight on time, or if there's one thing here that you absolutely have no idea what it is, you can probably ignore it and be okay. And of course, there might be 1 or 2 questions about things that are not anywhere on the list. Over time, sometimes I'll tell you, you know, I noticed that the list says this, but that's not how I wrote the test. I'll often let you know that ahead of time if that's the case. But I try to update my list each semester to be closer and closer to how I actually spend my time in class and what I ask you on the test. It also has sample essay questions. Now, I'm not making any guarantees, but what I tend to do is I'll choose one of the sample questions from each chapter, and then I'll also choose some other questions, maybe from the publisher, maybe make up some of my own in addition to these. And usually, if you have a really good prepared answer for all of the essay questions, when you get to the test, you can choose one of your prepared answers. Now, you don't get to bring in notes, but essay questions are worth quite a bit. So especially if you know you're not the best multiple choice question answerer, and my multiple choice questions tend to be pretty complicated, essay questions are a great place for you to make up points. And honestly, I hate grading essay questions. I would much rather do all multiple choice on my end because I'm lazy. But I believe that it's important for students to get a chance to tell me what they know outside of multiple choice. So it's really important to study essay questions. You can even come into office hours to talk to me about, like, do I really understand this answer? Is this answer what you're looking for? So it's a great time when, if you'll put the time in, you can do really well on the tests. And then I also give a sample bonus questions. For some reason, when I was writing these, I was very focused on 2 points each. I usually do a 1-point bonus question, but they're usually similar to this. And I also always include a bonus question that asks you to tell me about a video we watched in class and to tell me how that video relates to class content. So when you're watching videos in class, keep that in mind. So key terms handouts, students say they're so helpful. I really developed them because students said my tests were overwhelming, and it helps me stay focused also. But students say it just helped quite a bit. PowerPoint slides, I'll be honest, some of these are kind of outdated. Some of the notes are a little iffy on them, but if you really want them to help you track, if you pay attention better, if you have the notes next to you, that's great. I will encourage you, though, make sure that you're taking your own notes still, because research suggests that handwriting notes, even handwriting rather than a computer, is useful, that it can promote learning. There's a forum where you can post saying, like, hey, I really want to study with other people. Would anyone like to study with me? I really recommend studying in groups. I included some links that talk about how to make group study more effective. I think it's a great strategy. Even if you do most of your studying on your own, group study really can help. And then information and resources. This is where I just kind of throw random things. I'll often update this with whatever the final exam date is, because sometimes I don't have that by the time I'm making my syllabus, and so I have to just say to be announced on the syllabus. Let's see, APA style literature review. This is the next section, and it has a lot of really important information. I used to include all of this in the syllabus, and the syllabus was like 25 pages long, and I hate wasting paper, and I have a bad back, so I decided that that stuff could go online very easily. There was a very similar document handed down to me from other previous instructors for this class, and I added on to it myself. So step-by-step guide, you'll see in the syllabus, we'll do readings on the different steps and on these sort of first 3 pieces, and you can print them all out in a Word document here, or you can just look up each piece right here. So like if I click on step 4, it just comes up. Oh, that's not quite what I thought it was. Or maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe the steps aren't as detailed as I remembered them being. But either way, I'll make sure that what's in there, that what needs to be in there is in there. Yeah, this is more what I was expecting. So I think there's just not very much due. The assignments, again, some of the assignments information is a little old. Trust what you find where I'm going to show you rather than here. But it gives you a sense of what's due. Online resources, this is just where you can find, for example, if you're struggling with APA style, honestly, there's so many resources. I know that it's overwhelming and complicated, but there's just so many resources online. And if you don't know how to do something, you can just say, how do I put in a header APA style? And you find step-by-step instructions. You can find videos. There's just so many resources. If you send me a simple question about APA style, you might get back a search list like this, because I'll type it in, I'll glance to make sure that there's actually useful things, and then I'll just copy this and send it to you. I'm not typically very happy when I do that, though, because you could have just typed your question into Google. So again, online resources, it has just all sorts of things. Avoiding plagiarism. I have built plagiarism information into the course quite a bit, so there's honestly no excuse in my mind for plagiarism. I make sure that you know and have indicated to me that you know what plagiarism is before we get started. Templates and examples. I have put together quite a few templates. This class is really meant to be the class that teaches you how to write a paper. We've added a writing insight course, and so future students will be required to take that. Some of you might be required to take that course. Others of you aren't required to take it, but I still really recommend it, especially if you want to go to grad school. But because this is meant to help you, I give a lot of templates. I have spent a lot of time showing you what I want you to do, and you just kind of have to cut and paste. Now the comments over here, this is one I actually adapted from Dr. Sitnick, and the comments are there to teach you something. They're there because I'm trying to explain it to you. So don't expect to have everything explained in our 10-minute meeting. That's not going to work. You have to read the templates. And I have a template for the whole literature review with all the formatting in there. Now, if you upload this to Google Docs, it will change some of the line spacing. I don't know why. Google Docs is so close to being useful for an APA style paper. I really thought it was going to be there, but it just does a couple funny things that I haven't figured out yet. You're welcome to use it, but I warn you, if there's mistakes or weird things, you're going to lose points. So you can see some of it, the heading like limitations, that heading is exactly what you're going to have. Other things like theme to and title case, you would replace it with whatever your theme actually is, like athletes and pregame superstitions. And then you would just kind of keep replacing the text. And if you read that document, this wording, I'm telling you exactly what to do at each step. I'm telling you the rules. I'm telling you things like the quotes policies. Read this template and you'll know exactly what you're supposed to do. There's also a copy of the rubric here, and you can also get it by, if you click this, it automatically downloads. The rubric is in Excel, which is kind of weird, but I like it because I can just assign scores and it'll automatically go, which means I'm spending time giving you feedback instead of adding up scores. The way it works is you get a score in each area, and I mark, I'll mark whatever is most descriptive of your article, and that's the way I give you feedback. I'll give you a couple overall comments, either here or in your paper, and then I'll also rate you on things like, did you submit it correctly? Is the formatting correct? If you go over or under the page limits, your formatting is going to suffer. And those get taken as a percentage. So these three numbers, I also evaluate, did you fix everything you were supposed to fix for that last revision draft? And if you don't, that lowers how many of your points you get. I also check for APA. And there's some things up here that are APA related, but I have a really detailed checklist, and this is to help you check very carefully. Save this for future APA papers. And so I just put in a 1 for every mistake I see, and it automatically gets tallied. And so you can use this for your own papers for trying to check them, but this is the file that I'm going to send you to show you what your strengths and weaknesses were of the paper. So that's what you'll get after you do a paper for me. And you can always access it right there. So under templates and examples, we also have examples. We have this one. We actually have 3 versions. We have the original rough draft, which means there's not a rubric with it. And the name has been taken off of each of these. And you can see for this first one, there's a lot of mistakes. Like the header is way down here for some reason, because if you turn on this, you see there's a lot of extra returns. And you see that it's not the right font. It needs to be Times New Roman 12. And now there's extra spacing because instead of that, you're supposed to use a tab. Come on. You use a tab to get the number over there. And you also need to say running ahead. And now there's too many spaces. But you can see exactly what kinds of mistakes there were the first time. And so this student got feedback from other students that helped improve the paper. And so you get to see the second version, which I then gave a lot of feedback on. And then you get to see the third version. This student put a lot of work into this paper and improved it quite a bit. Now you can still see some issues. This student did not speak English as a sort of native language. She was an English learner, and you can see some of that. And then I did a final version where I didn't change any of the wording, but I corrected it for APA. So if you don't want to accidentally see mistakes and get it in your head that it's the wrong way, you might look at the version 3 APA corrected version. But this has the rubric, and you can see how her score increased based on her changes. This one is interesting because it's about holism and holistic treatment, which is a little bit of a controversial issue. And so this student talks about how, it really shows there was a big shift in terms of critical thinking and taking a neutral position. And the student said many of the same points in the final version, but she said them differently. In a way that was more scientific. It was also tough for me to really follow what the position of the student was on a lot of things. And so in the final version, it's much more clear where the student stands. Is holistic treatment good or bad? Is it questionable or not questionable? And this is a good example of why you need to be really careful when you choose a topic that's controversial, that you're passionate about. What I find is that when students are really passionate about something, they have a tough time being neutral, as any of us would. And so they don't notice the bias that's in their writing. And it's really tough for them to question the articles the way they need to. So you can choose any topic you want to, but I see a lot of students struggle with anything that would be considered controversial or social justice issues. Because students get distracted from the articles and want to talk about their opinions or their beliefs about the way things should be. And this is really a paper where you're practicing how to make an argument based on make a claim, support it with evidence. The last one I'll talk about briefly, this one is a more advanced paper in terms of the author chose to look at the studies themselves. So it's really, the point of the paper is to critique the studies. And every paper in the discussion section, you need to critique the studies. But this student was more familiar with research methods. This student wanted to go on to grad school, was on a research team as an undergrad, and really wanted the more challenging paper. So it's a way to see what you could do, but you don't have to structure your paper the way that this student did. And the other 3 are just very strong papers, and you see how they still improve based on feedback. It's essential to get a good score on the 3rd paper you turn in, the final revised submission, which is worth twice as much as the second middle one. It's essential that you improve based on the feedback you're given. And I'm really looking for absolutely no APA mistakes in that last one. Now here you see submit assignments, and you see the first one is a plagiarism certificate. and you see you must complete the tutorial, upload a test certificate. That you'll be able to upload a PDF. Worst case scenario, take a screenshot and upload it, but it's not that hard to make a PDF. I'm on a Mac. You go print, and you go open in PDF there. That would do it. Or if you print using the system dialog, you can say open a PDF in preview, and it's easy peasy. It's not much harder in Windows. Usually you can also go save page as, and you can come down here. Oh, I guess you can't do it here. I guess you can't do it that way, but often save as will let you do a PDF also. And you have to get 5 out of 5 on the APA homework. Now, let's go over there for just a moment. The first APA homework, plagiarism, you can take it as many times as you need to. But the thing is, so there's several questions. I'll give you the answer to one of them. How many words in a row? I use the IU plagiarism tutorial as a guide because I'm having you do it anyway, and they say 7. And I'll give you another hint. Dr. Parikh does not report plagiarism if she believes it was just a mistake, because it's not plagiarism if it's unintentional. This is false. It's still plagiarism even if you didn't mean to. And I've taken a lot of work to make sure you know what it means. And then you just have to say in your own words, what is plagiarism? And you have to talk briefly about each of these. I'm not looking for a big academic description. I just want to have sort of clear evidence that you know what it is before we move on. This, you have to wait for me to grade. If it's not good enough, I'll let you know. And you'll get a chance to do it again. It's considered late until you get it done. And late policy is you lose 5% of the total value every day that it's late. And I need at least 2 days to grade it. So start this early, do your best. I think I don't know if you get to see the answers right away, but either way, make sure you get these done. Once those are done, I'll show you what it'll look like. Once you've done both of those and you go to submit assignments, you'll see all the assignments. You'll see the descriptions. They tell you what you need to upload. They tell you how I grade it. Really, up until your paper submission, it's pretty much if you do the work, you get the credit. And that's partly because I grade these last two so hard, I give you a lot of buffer in here. You get a lot of essentially free points. Let's see, there's also just a discussion place where you can post, you can create a thread if you are looking for peer editing. You can say, does anyone want to trade papers? And then there's also some links down here. You can go, you can see your grades. I'm not a student, so I don't get to see my grades. You can go to groups. So if you join, you can actually create a group and, or if you want a study group, I can set one up for you so you can communicate through BlackBoard. There's also a calendar where you can see everything that's due, and you can see it in all your classes. So again, I really work hard to keep things easy for you. It looks like I have something wrong there. But I work hard to try to make it all work easily for you. That being said, if there's ever a discrepancy between BlackBoard and the syllabus, check with me about which one's right. Usually I consider the syllabus to be right when it's not clear. One last thing I'll show you. Actually, I'll do the schedule. I want the schedule. The way I build the schedule, I know that there's a lot going on in this course, partly because we have those 2 tracks. We have the chapter, and then we also have the writing assignments. I give you a checklist. This is a great organizational tool. My hope is that it'll help you realize how helpful making checklists can be, because it helps you show that you're caught up, that you're doing everything that needs to be done. And all of these things are due by 11:59 the night before class. I just have to have a cutoff somewhere, so 5 minutes late is late, and you lose 5%. So if it's a 5-point assignment, which like the video responses are, 1 day late means you get 4.5 points. And so, you know, it's better, certainly better to do it late than not do it at all, but those days add up quite a bit. And it may be half a point on a small assignment like that, but on, let's say, your paper submission, 100 points, or I'm sorry, 50 points, that means you're losing 2.5 points a day. Is that right? Yeah, 2.5 points a day. On your final revision, yeah, which is here, you're losing 5 points a day. So it's critical to turn things in as close to on time as you can. So this is a pretty thorough review of where to find everything on Blackboard. I included, for the tests that are easiest to screw up, I included a little practice one for a bonus point here so that you get a chance to try it. And really, anything you're struggling with, Blackboard probably has videos helping you to do. Like this is just a nice general how to use Blackboard, but they also have things about so you can find more of them. You can find out how to do quizzes, how to upload assignments. I didn't know how to do it is not an excuse for being late, and I'm not going to provide last-minute tech support. If you honestly struggle with Blackboard, come to office hours and I'll help you. It's not a big deal, but come before it's due if you don't want to miss any points. If you have any questions about anything I showed you or anything that's different in your version of Blackboard, feel free to send me an email or come into office hours. I want you to know how to use Blackboard. Thanks.